Hi guys, and welcome to the return of the Cruel Wall. And yes, if you're new to this series, obviously being on Oversteer of course now, then welcome everyone. And yes, it's going to be more silly, more dramatic and more fun than it's ever been. We're starting off, if you didn't know the rules already, it's a simple thing where I score drivers from 10 down to 0 for their race performance over an F1 race weekend. And yeah, if I feel they've done really well, they'll get extra points. If they've done really badly, they'll get minus points. And there's a new feature coming at the end after I've finished scoring all 20 drivers as well, so stick around for that. So it's as simple as this. I'm going to go down race order, give my thoughts and feedback, give them a score, move on to the next driver. It's all in good fun, it's all in good humour. As you can see, I'm wearing a goddamn hat, so yeah, it's going to be interesting. So, to kick things off, Sebastian Vettel, the race winner of course. Yeah, qualified in third position, out-qualified by his teammate Raikkonen, and it didn't look as though Ferrari had the pace this weekend, but, and a big but, he came through to deliver the win of course. Now, very lucky with the safety car. We'll come into reasons why the safety car appeared shortly, but of course we all know why. Sebastian Vettel managed to capitalise on that virtual safety car of course, meaning that the pace of the cars behind, namely Hamilton and Raikkonen, had to go at a certain speed, and he benefited and effectively had a free pit stop. Hamilton did put pressure on Vettel after the safety car period of course, but nonetheless he kept him clean, kept him tidy, kept him honest and kept ahead. So for Sebastian Vettel, the first score to go on the 2018 Cruel Wall, and I'm going to award him 8 points. 8 points for Sebastian Vettel due to the fact that he got out-qualified by his teammate, and it was a very lucky safety car for him. It'd have been third, I think. Maybe Ferrari would have let him get past Raikkonen, perhaps. We don't know, of course. But, you know, I'm sure the conspiracy theorists out there are already going about with the Haas drivers retiring and then Vettel magically suddenly appearing ahead. But yeah, they're the deluded fans, and this wall is not for them. So yes, if you think of like that, I'd suggest you click off now. Next up, of course, was Lewis Hamilton, and did a stunning lap in qualifying to finish near enough 7/10 ahead of the next car, which is unbelievable, to be honest. New track record set as well. Unfortunate with that virtual safety car and then the full safety car, of course. So, Hamilton, let's be honest, streaks ahead of his teammate this weekend, like he normally is anyway. But for Hamilton, I think it's going to have to be 9 points. I'm going to score Hamilton 9 points, surely, purely because of the qualifying pace that he had, of course, and the fact that he could do nothing about that virtual safety car and the safety car in the end. He would have run the race without that, and of course Australia is a difficult circuit to overtake. Kept his moaning to a minimum as well, which makes a change for him. Next up was, of course, Kimi Raikkonen bagging the final podium after qualifying P2, and again, unfortunate to miss out as a result of the virtual safety car on a potential P2. Didn't have the pace to match Hamilton, of course, though, throughout the race. And yeah, so Raikkonen for me, a fairly good race, but he's on the podium at least, and that's a good return. That's a 1-3 for Ferrari, so that's a very good start to their 2018 season. And Kimi Raikkonen, I'm going to also award him 8 points because he did out-qualify the golden boy, Sebastian Vettel. Next up was, of course, Daniel Ricciardo. Now, Daniel Ricciardo had a 3-place grid penalty for FIA bullshit reasons, of course, driving too slow behind a red flag. Now, I didn't think that was possible, but there you go. Clearly they got it in for Ricciardo that race weekend, so it's the first race where we've had a grid penalty. Not just for him, of course, also one for Bottas, but nonetheless, started with me to go on, I suppose, with 3 engines and 3 gearboxes this year. We're going to see a lot of it, to the extent where qualifying is going to be irrelevant, I feel. So, nonetheless, Daniel Ricciardo, great recovery after starting P8, and I'm going to give him a solid 7 points. He can have 7 points. I'm feeling this cruel wall's not as cruel as it should be at the minute. Next up, Fernando Alonso benefited massively by the virtual safety car and safety car, of course, but you can't take that away from him. He was in the points anyway. I think it'd have been around 8th or 9th without the incidents with the Haas and, of course, the safety car gaining in positions. But nonetheless, we know what Alonso's capable of, and that's a great finish by McLaren, considering I didn't really rate him at all after all the testing issues they had, but they delivered in the race, and that's where it matters. So, a great result by Alonso. It's a bit further down the Cruel Wall this year. Last year's Cruel Wall champion as well, if you wasn't aware of that. So there you go. But yeah, Fernando Alonso, I'm going to score him 9 points because I think that was a great race by him. Great race. Next up was Max Verstappen. Oh, dearie me. Dearie me. Was overtaken by Kevin Magnussen at the start for P4, so dropped to P5. Then had a spin trying to overtake Magnussen and was just really ragged all race, having mistakes and running wide and kicking up the dirt and things, which is unlike Verstappen. We know he's robust in his driving style, but that was a bit too robust for my liking and a bit too robust for that Red Bull, which caused him to rotate. So, Verstappen, I do like you, but I didn't think you had a brilliant race. I think you had podium potential this weekend and you blew it. So for that reason, I'm going to score Max Verstappen 4 points. 4 points. It's getting crueler. Next up was Nico Olkenberg. Points for Renault, which is decent. They didn't score points this time last year. So starting as they sort of ended 2017. Of course, they had a lot of reliability issues last year, but we'll skip over that. But for Nico Olkenberg, a solid day for him. Both cars getting into the top 10 as well, which is what we haven't seen before. Last year, Palmer. Anyway, Nico Olkenberg, points on the start of the F1 2018 season for Renault. Great result, but could it have been better? I think, yes, for me, I feel Nico Olkenberg should have maybe had a go or a bit more of an attempt at getting past Verstappen and, of course, Alonso. It was pretty much in the cork in the bottle was Alonso, but no one really made any moves in that little gaggle for the 5th place finish. So, for me, Nico Olkenberg, a strong race, but I was just hoping a bit more from Renault. I was expecting more. So for that reason, I'm going to score Nico Olkenberg 6 points. Next up after Nico Olkenberg was, of course, a big disappointment this weekend, and it was Valtteri Bottas. Had many offs in practice, was off the pace in terms of Hamilton in practice and in qualifying, and he binned it in qualifying as well. Made a right smelly mess of that Mercedes. Yeah. Not a great start by Bottas, only recovering to P8 after starting P15 as well with his 5-place gearbox penalty already, of course, due to the accident. And yeah, Valtteri, what can I say? It was a disappointing race, a disappointing weekend. I am going to award you points because it's the first race. I'm feeling generous. I'm just happy F1's back. But it's not going to be many, and it's going to be... I've lost my lid. It's going to be 2 points. 2 points for Valtteri Bottas. Next up, Stoffel van Dorn, points again, so double points finish for McLaren. And yeah, he'll be happy with that, but of course outpaced by Alonso, like he was pretty much all season. I think he'll be hoping to close the gap up a bit more, as will his team to Alonso. But points is a good way to start a season, I suppose. A long season ahead, 20 races left. So for that reason, Stoffel, I'd like to see you a bit closer to Alonso, but you scored points, so that's okay. So I'm going to award you 6 points for Van Dorn. Claiming the final point was Carlos Sainz. An unusual one for Carlos Sainz. He did get into Q3, of course, which was great to see. Both Renaults into Q3. And yeah, Carlos Sainz had an unusual issue towards the end where either he wasn't getting his drinks from his drinks bottle, which was causing him to be nauseous, or whatever they put in the mixture was causing him to feel nauseous. So, yeah, an interesting one, and it caused him to drop off the gaggle for the P5 battle, but he did hold on to finish in P10. So, an unusual issue, definitely a strange one. Yeah, outpaced by Nico Hulkenberg, of course. So for that reason, I'm going to score Carlos Sainz middle of the road 5 because I feel, I don't know what that issue was. I think it was he couldn't get the drinks because I can't imagine what they'd be sticking in it to make him feel nauseous. I mean, Jesus Christ. Unless they were sticking Fosters in it or something, you know what I mean? But who knows? It is Australia after all. So yeah, middle of the road 5 for Carlos Sainz. Next up, big disappointment here for me and for many other people. Weren't expecting to see Force India's out the points. 11th and 12th was Sergio Perez and Ocon. Perez had the measure of Ocon throughout the weekend in qualifying and, of course, the race. Came within half a second of scraping that final point away from Renault of Carlos Sainz, but just couldn't get past. Yeah, I'm not sure where Force India are in terms of performance. They did make gains ahead of what they qualified, of course. They were 13th and 15th on the road. And yeah, finished 11th and 12th. So did make gains, but it's the first time since 2009 that Force India haven't scored at an opening round. which is disappointing. So, for that reason, I think it's more to do with the car than the drivers. But I'm going to score Sergio Perez 6, and I'm also going to score Esteban Ocon 6, because I think they had a good race for the car that they're in. That car needs work. Next up in P13 was Charles Leclerc on his debut in Formula 1, or as David Croft likes to say, Charles Leclerc. I mean, fucking hell. I know he's French, or, well, Monegasque, but you know what I mean? There's no need for emphasis like that, David Croft. Jesus Christ, it's like when you called Pierre Gasly last year. You know, but there we go. That's David Croft for you. He likes to emphasise every word that's not there. So, yeah, so I might actually already make an amend to the cruel wall, and I'm going to scribble off the S and the C on Charles Leclerc, and from now on it'll be Charles Leclerc. So, yeah. P13 for Charles Leclerc on his debut. Strong debut, did get out-qualified by Marcus Erickson and then was out-raced by Erickson until Erickson had the issue. But nonetheless, a good debut, solid, kept it clean, kept it tidy, had a couple of offs in practice, but a lot of others did as well. I think it was Bottas that had the majority of the offs. But yeah, strong debut, out-qualified and out-raced by Ericsson. I was expecting that here for the first race. I don't think Leclerc's been there before. Sorry, Leclerc. So for that reason, I'm going to score him middle of the road 5 points, because it was a strong debut. Of course, ended up 13th as a result of quite a lot of retirements. But nonetheless, a decent start. I think he can build on it. Next up was Lance Stroll, the mighty, talented, the audacious, and the still paying £75 million for a Formula 1 season at Williams. Lies in 14th place. What an astonishing result there. Williams are doing crap, they've got a crap driver lineup, and that proves it. So, for me, Lance Stroll didn't do anything for me last year, and he's not doing anything for me this year. It was actually well chuffed to get out of Q1 as well. The excitement was like he'd been on pole. And for Williams, that's a real letdown. So, Lance Stroll, yeah, disappointing race. I just can't be bothered with them. I genuinely can't be bothered with Williams. So for that reason, Lance Stroll, I'll give you 0, because, you know, I just can't be arsed with you. Can't be arsed. Next up was Brendan Hartley, the last of the finishers, and was also the only car to finish a lap down in the end. Pitted on the first lap as a result of a lock-up at the turn 1, which was, of course, completely his fault. That's just one of those things. And then, of course, was being outraced by Pierre Gasly. And, yeah, not too bad of a race for him. The pit stops didn't benefit him, and neither did the virtual or the full safety car. He did manage to unlap himself, but then got lapped again towards the end. So, Brendan Hartley, a bit of a difficult start. I mean, they did get both eliminated in Q1. Hartley did out-qualify Gasly, though. So, for that reason, I'm going to score Brendan Hartley. Oh, I'm toying between 2. I'm going to give him 4 points. I'm going to be slightly harsh on him. Because I just don't think he really delivered. I think had he had a better pit strategy, and maybe he wouldn't have been lapped, but he's the only car that got lapped. At the end of the day, that has to be points off, doesn't it? So now we come to the biggest disappointment of the race, and in no way am I blaming the drivers for it, of course, but both Haas cars out within 2 laps of each other as a result of a wheel not being locked in properly at a pit stop, and costing that team a potential P5 and P6 finish. I mean, what would that have done for the team straight away? You know what I mean? That would have been an amazing result for Haas. Both drivers fantastic to qualify in P6 and 7, and of course was elevated to P5 and 6. And I mean, I'm just so disappointed for him. I put my head in my hands when Grosjean retired after seeing Magnussen go so early. And what I am going to say to the Haas drivers is massive respect to the pair of you for getting out of your cars and waving to the fans. You could see the disappointment on the face. And also massive respect to you both shaking as many team hands as you could as you got back to the paddock. There wasn't many of them left because I think they'd all gone to take a cyanide pill. But nonetheless, massive respect for Grosjean. And Magnussen and of course Haas. The pace is there. They were the 4th best team today and battling with Red Bull and keeping Red Bulls behind them. So it's so sorry that you went so early. So Kevin Magnussen and Roman Grosjean, you are my heroes of the weekend. And you are both going to be duly rewarded on this crawl wall, and you are both going to get 10 points each because that wasn't your fault and you were playing a really good, strong team game. You were working together. Magnussen made a fantastic move to get past Verstappen at the start as well. And your racecraft was perfect. It wasn't your fault. Your wheels came off. So, thank you, Haas. We'll see you next time at Bahrain, and hopefully you can get some solid points that you duly deserved here. Next up in the retirements list, of course, was Pierre Gasly. Believe engine-related issues with a Honda, not surprising. Although they were quite reliable in testing, weren't they? But not to worry, I suppose. It's the first race of the season, 20 races to go. He was off the pace, but was out racing Hartley. And, of course, the retirement wasn't his fault. None of the retirements this weekend was anyone's fault. But Pierre Gasly, I'm going to score him a middle-of-the-road 5 because he did balls up qualifying, I know he did, and Hartley did out qualifying, but I think Gasly, in relation to Hartley, I think Gasly could have been up there potentially with the Force Indias, maybe trying to scrape a point had the issue not occurred. So for that reason, middle-of-the-road 5. Next up was Marcus Erickson. Power steering failure on Erickson, so not his fault why he retired. 49 races since he last scored a point in Formula 1, and it's looking like it's going to be a few more as well. Did out-qualify Leclerc, sorry, and did very well in that respect, and was out-racing him as well, but power steering failure, that's that. So, middle-of-the-road 5 for Ericsson for now. I'm not keen on him. I don't think he deserves to be there because, again, money keeps him there. But nonetheless, a sort of okay race weekend for him. He did what he could until the power steering failure occurred. And the first of the retirements, of course, so last in P20 was Sergey Sirotkin. I believe it was a brake issue. I'm not entirely sure. He just drove straight on at turn 13 and we never saw a replay of it. Similar to what Lance Stroll did last year, really, with his brake failure. Sirotkin finished in qualifying P19, I think it was. Piss poor wherever it was. It was out in Q1. Nowhere near the pace of his teammate in practice, qualifying all the race. So, yeah, crap weekend by him. And people are saying he's talented. Yeah, he clearly isn't. So that's another 0 for Williams. So Williams are doing really badly. So at this point, I normally end it. Thank you all for watching. I've scored all 20 drivers. But I have got a special guest this weekend with me, and he will be here for the remainder of the season as well. Of course, he's not racing in Formula 1 anymore, so he's got a lot of free time on his hands. And that is Julian Palmer. So I'm just going to go get him. And I will be back in just a second, so bear with me. What he's going to do is, he's going to score a driver, he's going to put a little picture of himself next to a driver who has done incredibly badly this race weekend, like he did on so many occasions, and that will be minus 10 points off of their race total, what they have scored so far on the crawl wall. So, for example, Kevin Magnussen, if Julian Palmer awards him the Palmer of the Week award, as we're going to call it, then that will be minus 10 points, so therefore he'll have 0. So, let's wait and see what he scores him. I'm just going to go get him, so just bear with me a second. Julian! 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 Where are you? No, it's your turn, Julian. Julian, come on, for God's sake. They're keeping the people waiting, man. Keeping the people waiting. Yeah, I know, just finish on the loo and come through. Yeah, okay, you ready? You coming? Okay, what's that? You got a bit of a sore throat so you can't talk? Okay, that's fine, mate. Don't worry about it. Don't worry at all. Okay, here it comes, ladies and gentlemen. It's Julian Palmer to introduce the cruel wall and to award a Palmer of the Week. Is that it? Have you done it? Have you done it already? That were quick. I know. Yeah, I know. But I was expecting you to talk more. I know, but... Well, what can I say? I think the fans are going to be disappointed that you didn't say anything. Right, I'm back anyway. So, guys, that's the end of the crawl wall. Julian Palmer has awarded Valtteri Bottas Palmer of the Week, so that is minus 10 points for him, which is minus 8. So he is really not kicked off his campaign well at all, has he? So, on that note, thanks a lot for watching. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a bit serious, I go through a race discussion, but it's just a bit of a laugh as well. And, shit. And yeah, so that is the end of the crawl wall. Hope you did enjoy it. Thanks a lot for watching, and much love.